Hi, welcome back to Building Resilience, Love, Learn, and Lead, or Let Go. I'm Nagam Alsamari, and I'm so glad you're here, joining me on this Sunday to talk about connected peace. How we can build peaceful relationships, starting with our own self compassion, learning from our experiences, leading with resilience, and letting go of what no longer serves us. As always, we are, and I'm looking for my pen, as always, we are following the framework love, learn, and lead or let go. I hope you're joining me to look at your own experiences in your own life and relationships and putting that on the stand and thinking about and reflecting about your own relationships and thinking, okay, how are we going to improve our lives by improving our relationships? How can we build peaceful relationships by starting with self-compassion? How can we learn from our experiences? How can we lead with resilience or let go when it no longer serves us? If you've ever felt drained by difficult relationships, um, or struggle to set boundaries without guilt, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. True peace in relationships starts with how we treat ourselves. A lot of times we love giving, we love helping out, we love serving, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with any of this, except we have to first take a look at how we're serving ourselves. Many times our cups are empty or near empty and we're trying to serve others, but we don't have anything to give. If we don't show ourselves kindness, how can we expect to have the energy to pour into others? So self-compassion means giving yourself the same patience and understanding that you offer to those around you. We tell our friends and our colleagues and people who come to us and talk to us, you know what kind of advice we offer is how are you resting? How are you taking care of yourself? How are you doing things and not feeling guilty about them? But we don't do that advice with ourselves. So we have to start with us, right? Because we're givers, we're doers. And it's a path we, want to continue on, but we need to recharge and protect this energy so that we can continue to serve. When we have self-compassion and give ourselves the same patience and some understanding, this means we are setting our limits. We know what our limits are, and we're setting boundaries to protect our energy. And we're not doing this selfishly. We are also doing this with others in mind because you want to continue to serve, you want to continue to help, but you are running low on energy. Many of us struggle with boundaries because we fear being seen as selfish, right? Or people look at us and say that we're unkind. But here is the truth: healthy boundaries don't push people away, they create space for healthier connections. And I mean, yes, you're going to have some relationships in your life, personal, professional, or otherwise, who when you set boundaries they may seem to go away. They don't understand the boundaries because they're used to taking, and so they may leave this relationship, and that's not a loss. It's not a loss. Everybody needs their boundaries. Everyone needs those healthy boundaries so that everyone can re-energize, right? So when you set these healthy boundaries and others see the space, they understand it, then you can continue to serve and give and help others while protecting your own. I want you to think about a time when you said yes, when you really meant no. How did that feel? Now, imagine a life where you honor your needs without guilt. We love helping others, right? So we want to serve and we want to say yes to people's requests because we're kind. But are you able actually to do that? A lot of people uh say yes because either they feel guilty about not helping or they have a hard time saying no to requests even if they have a completely booked to-do list and booked schedule. They still say yes. Maybe there some people are people pleasers and they like, to make sure that when they serve that they are pleasing. But no matter what the reason is, if you say yes and you really can't take any more, you're not being helpful to yourself. So how did it feel the last time you said yes and you actually mean no? How did that feel? Now imagine yourself actually saying no. And it doesn't have to be a rude no, it doesn't have to be you know, um a turn away kind of thing. Just apologize and say, I would love to help. I'd love to say yes to this project or this request, and I will be able to help as soon as I'm done with my items on the schedule because I have a full schedule. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Once that's done, you can actually jump in and help. So, what's one boundary you need to reinforce to protect your peace? If that's you're always saying yes and you're helping out and you don't have many boundaries set, I want you to think about that. Now is the time to think about a boundary that you can set for yourself to protect your peace. You need your peace to help others. All right. The second in our framework is learn. Practice active listening and learn from your past challenges. You've gone through some setbacks in your life. Don't ignore them. I want you to learn from them. What have you gone through that you can pull back right now and look at the lessons and see how we can use them to move forward? We've all had relationship struggles, misunderstandings, hurt feelings, moment where we wished we'd handled things differently. Instead of seeing those as failures, what we do here in building resilience, what we do is take that experience and we look at it as lessons learned, right? So when we see them as lessons, the whole perspective changes. One of the best ways to improve our relationship is through active listening. Most of us, when we're listening, and I'll say I'm guilty of this, I listen to find some sort of common theme, common ground, so I can respond back with something. So I can show that, yeah, I'm listening to you, but it really, at the end, it doesn't actually show that I'm listening. It shows that I'm just waiting for a moment to jump in with something remotely related to what people are saying to me. And I've been working on my active listening. A lot of people, most people listen to respond, not to understand. What happens when you actually listen to understand is that you create space for connection, and it actually looks like this. You're just listening. Wait until the person is done talking. And it may feel uncomfortable when you're not responding and when you have this pause between you and the other person sharing, but it's okay. If that person is, talking to you, if they have a question or if they are waiting for advice or some sort of something from you to share, then they will ask you to do that. But most of the time, we just jump in uninvited without even being. And I'm really guilty of this. I do this all the time, and I've been working on this to create this active listening habit where I don't actually participate back in the conversation. Instead, I just listen. So here's a challenge for you and me. The next time you're in a conversation, focus completely on the other person. You're going to have some thoughts in your head that you're going to want to jump out of your mouth and, shared with the other person. It's okay. Keep them down. No interruptions. You're going to try to form responses in your head. Try to push them away. You don't have to be ready with a response. Just listen. And when it comes to past challenges, ask yourself, what did I learn? What will I do differently next time? Because growth comes from reflection, not regret. We have this really nasty habit of doing something and regretting it and focusing on it. Instead, I mean, we're already focusing on it, we're already giving it so much attention. So instead, let's do this. Instead, let's focus on it and say, what have I learned from this experience? And how can I do it differently the next time? This gives you the space to interact with this challenge in a different way. And it helps you learn something and it'll feel so much different. I've tried this several times. And that feeling of regret that you feel, it's going to shrink down bit by bit when you change your mindset and when you look at the challenge as something to learn from versus what the heck did I just do? So, the challenge for you in this one is try practicing active listening this week with somebody you usually talk to and notice how it changes your conversations. Give it a try and see what happens when you change the conversation from back and forth to just listening and waiting until the other person is asking. The next is lead. So, first is love, which is self compassion, learn from experience, and now lead. We always, we're always very generous with sharing. Whenever we are learning something, we have to lead with it, right? So, lead by example with empathy and resilience, two of my very favorite words. As you know, and we've talked about this a lot, leadership isn't about a job title or a rank or a position. It's about how you show up in everyday life, and most importantly, how we show up in our relationships. When we lead with resilience, we handle conflict with grace instead of reacting emotionally. Most of the time, conflict happens when we react too quickly to something that is happening and we don't give it the time for us to kind of reflect on what's happening, so we don't respond. What we do is react. Reaction is really quick. You don't give yourself enough time to think about what's happening, and it's so hard not to do that, right? Because at the moment you're riled up emotionally, you've got something you got to answer to. It ends up being a really quick reaction that we most of the time regret and are not happy about. So instead, what we do is we have to learn to respond. Um, Responding means you pause, think, observe the situation, and then see how you're going to respond to it instead of reacting. Choose to be the person who de escalates rather than adds to the chaos. Instead of responding with your emotions, reacting with your emotions to the situation immediately, pause, assess the situation. I mean, this is not something easy. This is going to take a long time to learn, but it's okay. It can be learned. That's a great news. And the way to do this, if you're somebody who's not used to this, if you're someone who is quick with their responses, you're immediately reacting to a situation, and you want to learn to wait and respond, then you start small. Let's say you're confronted with a situation. Um, Instead of, the first thing you should think about, instead of saying something or starting to defend yourself or whatever, instead just listen. Listen to the end of the conversation. This will give you time to think about what's going on and to fully understand the situation, hopefully. The other thing you could do is ask questions. Simple questions without any attitude, which sometimes they de-escalate the situation. So try those two things at the beginning and try them, small doses, and this will help you get on the path of being someone who responds versus somebody who reacts. And instead of assuming the worst, most of the time, this is why we react. We assume the worst. Take a moment to consider the other person's perspective. This is how they see you, right? So instead of trying to win an argument, let's try to understand instead. But leading doesn't mean tolerating everything, obviously, right? Being strong doesn't mean staying silent when something isn't right. It means knowing when to step back and when to engage and when to move on. Ask yourself, how can you bring more emotional resilience into your interactions this week? What can you do? Can you try the listening part until the other person is done? Can you try asking questions? And can you try not to jump to conclusion or assumptions about the other person immediately? Maybe give them some time. Kind of hard to do, but let's give it a try. Let's see how that works. Small steps. And finally, let go. The final step of the framework is let go. Release resentments and unrealistic expectations. And that's something we do all the time. We hold on to resentment, and it's like carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go. It only weighs you down. Eventually, you feel exhausted, right? We have this expectation of people to behave a certain way, to say something in a certain way, to meet our expectations. And when they don't meet those expectations of behavior and talking, we feel frustrated and hurt. But here is the truth: people will disappoint, right? We disappoint each other all the time. I disappoint others too, right? So why are we expecting others to behave in a certain way? But we disappoint not because we want to, because we're human. We're human beings. Letting go here does not mean excusing bad behavior. It means releasing the need to control how others act, because you can't do that. We can only control how we act and what we say and how we feel. So we have to let go of the assumption that we can control a situation, including how someone else could act. It means making peace with the fact that closure is not always an apology. You won't always get an apology. It's not always a closure. So take a deep breath. What is something you can let go of today? Maybe it's an old grudge. Maybe it's an old expectation that's causing you stress. Whatever it is, give yourself permission to release it and move forward. Again, what is something you can let go of today? Write down one thing you are ready to let go of right now, today. What is it? Say it out loud and do it. And if you can't do it today, write it down, come back to it. Come back to it again. Put it somewhere where you can see it. When you say things aloud, it sounds like someone else is talking to you. you hear your voice talking. Don't just keep it up in your thoughts, bring it out. Okay? Write it down, say it aloud, and then move forward. Okay? Connected peace isn't about avoiding conflict or making everyone happy. It's not possible. It's about building relationships that nourish rather than drain you. And that starts with you. Protect your own peace enough to set boundaries. Learn from past experiences and practice deep listening so you can make those relationships with others better. Lead with resilience and empathy, or let go of resentment and unrealistic expectations that you have set for yourself or others. I hope today's episode gave you something to reflect on. If it resonated with you, share it with someone who might need this message. And if you haven't already, make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Next week, we're talking about rising from rejection, how to build resilience when things don't go your way, whether it's in business, in relationships, or in life. Until then, keep leading with love, learning, and resilience. And when necessary, remember to let go. I will see you next week. And I want you to stay active on the chat. Put down one thing that you're going to do today. What are you going to practice? And how has today's episode helped you? And I will see you next